Hey everyone, this is Jocelyn from A Nerves on the Move. If you are new to our channel, I am one of five. So it's myself, my husband, my three children. We live in Honduras. We are educators, content creators. Our channel is all about living abroad, teaching abroad, living your best life, international education. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button. But today we are filming episode 3 of our series, Making the Plunge into Living Abroad and or Teaching Abroad. And we have our very first guest ever, Nurse on the Move. I'm so excited to have her here. Her name is Adalia Aborisade, better known as Picky Girl Travels the World. This woman has been featured in Expats Abroad, Essence Magazine. She is nothing short than phenomenal. I'm also having a huge fangirl moment. I explained to her I am a super huge fan. Since day one, when I started to think about making the plunge, you were the first person I subscribed to. I watched every video. You taught me so much about what to expect, financial literacy, just even having a voice for myself. So I'm just so excited to have you here today. That being said, for those of you who are not familiar with Adalia, please tell us, like, who is Adalia? Why Picky Girl Travels the World?
Oh, wow. I am picky. Well, the name Picky Girl Travels started out as kind of a joke because I am a notoriously picky eater. I've been that way my whole life. But really, as things have evolved, it's become evident that I am very picky about lots of things.
Mm-hmm.
About how I spend my time, who I spend my time with. Like, I am particular. I'm particular about how I live my life because life is short. We get one go round at this. And so for me, it's very important that the life I live be like the best life possible. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm picky, but in a good way.
Yeah.
I am a former classroom teacher and what was my other title? Instructional technologist, coordinator, integration coordinator. I don't know. It's been a while since I did that, but that's where I started. And now my work is primarily focused on the intersection of financial education
Mm-hmm.
and empowering Black women. To travel, to live abroad, to do
Yeah.
whatever really it is they want to do.
All that good stuff. I love it. I just love it. So I actually have a question for you. So I know that just like me, you started in Honduras and you just talked about your education background. So when you were thinking about making that plunge to abroad or abroad to live overseas, was it more like a catalyst to get overseas? Like teaching is a way that I can travel, or was it more of I really love teaching and I've always wanted to work in international education?
Um, I didn't even know for the vast majority of my career, I didn't even know international education was a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there was a point, not midway, a little bit past midway, that I worked with somebody for a year and then she left to work at a Saudi Aramco school. And that piqued my interest because I always liked to travel. I had always wanted to move abroad. And I thought I had always envisioned that I would need to become like, excuse me, a flight attendant or something like that
Yeah.
in order, like, I felt like, oh, I picked the worst career ever. Excuse
I,
me.
it's funny that you say that. I felt the same way. I come from a military background and I used to think, man, I should have went to the Navy. It just the information was not out there. I did not know this
Yeah.
was a career that I could travel in.
So I thought I had picked the worst career. And then she's telling me, like, oh, yeah, we're going to live in Saudi Arabia. I'm going to teach at this school. I'm going to teach in English. And I was like, oh, really? And so um, at that point, I was like, okay, well, maybe this is a thing for me to do.
Mm-hmm.
This is when I was still married. He was not on the same page with me there,
Okay.
which is one of the many reasons we are no longer married. But fast forward a few years, I worked somewhere else where a husband and wife team left because they got jobs in the UAE. And so I kept thinking, "Hmm, maybe that will be a way that I can go abroad." And so um, I ended up going abroad kind of toward the tail end of my teaching career. And I don't know. I liked the idea of international education,
Okay.
but that wasn't my driving thing. It was more of this is a vehicle to get me abroad. Like once I realized, like, oh, I actually am in the career that's the easiest to go abroad in, or at least it
Yes.
was at the time. And then that kind of opened things up to me.
Mm-hmm. Um, yeah, it's funny how sometimes the information just isn't available to us. And I would take it a step further to say people who look like us. The information is just not available and not out there. And thank God now we have these channels and we have people with their voice like you and myself and other Black women and people of color who are like spreading the word, like do this. So this is real life right now. I have some questions that my subscribers want to know the answers to, and it's great to have an expert like you on air with us. Um, so I know that again, you were in Honduras, but in Tegucigalpa. I'm in San Pedro Sula right now. Now, one of the biggest questions that I have, or I had, and a lot of subscribers have, is now when choosing a country, or like what advice do you have in regards to like the interview process? Like what questions will employers ask? What should we ask? Like what should we ask? Because just as much as they're interviewing us, we're interviewing them. So like any subtle red flags to look for when choosing a country or a school, because I know you're not in Honduras anymore.
No, I'm not. And actually, okay, so my experience in Honduras was actually great.
Mm-hmm.
I was telling this story the other day. I first, when I decided, okay, I'm going to pursue teaching internationally, I think what most people do is they looked at, okay, well, where can I go make the most money?
Yeah,
Okay, because nobody goes to Latin America for the money.
exactly.
And so, but like I wasn't getting super excited about that. And there was something in the back of my mind kept saying, but you know what? If you're going to go live somewhere else, it'd be really great if you could spend that time like learning Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
And that thought would not go away. And so finally I was like, oh, well, I guess that means you need to be teaching somewhere in Latin America. Just so happened they were hosting can't even remember what the organization was, but they were hosting a job fair specifically for schools in Latin America in Houston, where I lived. And so I was like, okay, this is it.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, my good friend was building a house in Honduras, in Utila. And just half joking, she was like, you ought to get a job in Honduras. And then you could come hang out at our beach house. I walk in, literally the first booth I go to is for this school in Honduras. Honduras has not been on my map other than hearing my friend talk about this house they were building.
Mm-hmm.
And when I looked at their openings, they had an opening that took both portions of my career and blended it into one position. And I was like, it was almost as if y'all created this position for me.
Yeah.
They hadn't been able to fill it because they hadn't been able to find anybody with the right skill set. So the interview, I I own this completely. I had no idea what I was doing. Okay. I was woefully unprepared. But you know, sometimes the universe unfolds as it should, which is what I think happened there. But definitely you should be interviewing them because Honduras was great.
Mm-hmm. I
My
love it here.
second international posting was in Kuwait, and that was an exercise in red flags and stuff you should not do. So
Mm.
much so that I had actually created a document of like 13 red flags to look out for because that experience was so bad. So, yeah. So, like when you're asking questions, ask questions about the things that matter to you as a teacher.
Okay.
So for me, that was curriculum. And for instance, the school I worked at in Kuwait, when I repeatedly asked for them to send me the curriculum
Mm.
for the courses I was hired for, I kept getting a PDF of the cover of the textbook.
Mm. Yeah, that's a huge
And
red flag.
Huge,
Yeah.
huge. And I thought, oh, we're missing something in
Yeah,
translation.
the
They don't
communication.
understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't understand what I'm asking. Oh no, that was their curriculum.
Okay.
And huge red flag. So the things that matter to you as a teacher, it's not just about like how much will I make, but you should, I would think you would want to ask questions about how will you be paid? Like, are you going to be paid in USD? Are you going to be paid in
Hmm.
local currency? Some kind of mix,
Yeah.
because that's important as you're making your decisions about like how much can I save when I'm there, um, how easy it will be to get your money out of the country.
Yeah.
That's not something you normally think about
Yeah.
until you're knee deep and then you can't, and you got bills back in the States you can't pay because you didn't think about that. But the things that matter to you as a teacher, if it's about resources, if it's about professional development, if it's about curriculum, what those questions that are important to you, you still need to ask them and really pay attention to the answers you get.
Yeah. It's funny because we were in a similar boat. Honduras was not on our map. We were 100. We knew we were going to Latin America, though. We knew we were going to Latin America. I have a good knowledge of Spanish. My son does. We wanted to be close to home, but we were like Mexico or Panama. Like we're one of those. And then Honduras showed up. Um, and so we took the job. It checked all those things like you were saying, like as far as the curriculum, their learners, the ratio. We really wanted our kids to be around the locals and to learn the language and to be enmeshed into that. Now, the one thing that was a challenge was finding information about Honduras. Like it was just
Yes.
not possible at the time. There wasn't a family living in Honduras that was showing videos on YouTube or expats in America and Honduras. It did not exist. If anything, I would say the only thing we could find were the challenges of Honduras. Like these are the challenges they have, and these are the worst things about Honduras. That was plenty available, but like life as an expat or a teacher in Honduras did not exist. So
No.
I'm kind of wondering, as an expert, how would you go about, or how did you go about finding that information to a country where there might not be that information readily available?
Well,
Like, how did
you're
you know?
100% right. That was the same struggle I had because Honduras has mostly out migration. It is
Mm-hmm.
not a destination for, if we're going to use the term expats, it's not a destination.
Yeah.
Pretty much if you're not attached to the embassy or the State Department or the military, as a foreigner, you're not going there. And
Yeah.
like you said, there was virtually nobody sharing their experience. So I did all the Googles. And at the time, Tegucigalpa and San Pedro Sula were both like number one, number two most dangerous, the
Oh no,
murder capitals of
they
the
still say
world.
that now. I get into an argument with people who are literally like, we had a mass shooting at the mall down the street from me, but don't live in San Pedro Sula. Like that's still going around now.
Yeah. And so I got lucky. A couple that worked, I believe the wife worked at the school I was going to. They
Mhm.
had blogged briefly.
Ah,
So I scoured their blog, you know, I looked at some of the kind of vacation-y kinds of things, but still I
Rotan.
just kind of, I talked to a couple of the teachers who worked at the school,
Hmm.
like the administration connected us. And so I asked them a couple of other questions because for me, my big concern, I was bringing my 15-year-old with me and I was bringing my dog. And I was a little less worried about the 15-year-old because, kids are
Yeah.
kids, than I was about the dog because I was like, I don't know how any of this works in another country. Like, where can we buy dog food? Like, how I'm going to take her to the vet. Um, I had been told so many things about the security situation. I
Hmm.
was like, will I be able to walk the dog? That kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, you know, so I found as much as I could. And then I was like, these people work at this school, they live there.
Yeah.
it can't be that bad. It was really
Yeah. Yeah.
was really kind of my final conclusion on it, and was like, okay, well, this is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally understand that. I tell people all the time, it's better to listen to the people who are actually there that you can talk with, that are alive and breathing, because they're going to tell you the real and things that you just might not know. That being said, how do you prepare yourself, and not just Honduras or an educator, how do you prepare yourself for those cultural taboos before arriving in a host country, or is it kind of like you just made the plunge and just said, I'll figure it out when I get there?
I had a advantage. I had taught geography for I forget how many
Mm,
years. So I already had like more baseline knowledge than the average American when it came to like what to expect, that kind of thing. But at the same time, um, as somebody who had been traveling solo, that sort of thing, like, and you know, grew up, let's say, not the nicest area in
mhm.
Houston, like there's a certain amount of like city survival skills like I already had.
Okay.
So, um I guess but what I was not ready for, and I hadn't even considered it, was I remember when I first arrived, everybody was kissing. And
Oh, yeah.
I was like, I don't know you people like that. Like, and so that caught me off guard. But I always tell people, really go with no expectations.
Mhm.
Um, because this is something I see a lot of Americans struggle with. And
Okay.
yes, I understand that there is North America, South America, Central America. Yes, I understand that before
You're talking
anybody
about people
jumps
from
my
the States.
case.
Yeah, we know what you're
Because
talking about.
and let me just point this out. We are saying, I am saying America as a short version of the United States of America, just like we say Mexico as a short version of the United States of Mexico.
Hmm.
So for anybody got something to say about that, get up off my back. Um, I say Americans often go places, and I don't even know that they are conscious of it, but they have these expectations that things will work a certain way. I have learned when going other places, have absolutely no expectations other than there will be people there. Like,
There were people there.
because that's the easiest way to get your feelings hurt. Like, oh, well, they didn't do this, or this didn't happen in this amount of time. Or, I just, when they started, everybody started kissing as we were greeting. I was like, oh, this is what we're doing. Okay. I didn't balk at it, although I am an introvert and really don't be liking folks up in my space. I just rolled with it. And, there were a variety of other things that kind of unfold, and you're like, oh, this is how we do things here, and just kind of go with the flow.
Yeah. I know I had to be very flexible with that because, like you were saying, as an American, a person from the States, you guys, a person from the States, I came in thinking that school should be this way. Like the difference between teaching in the United States and the teaching in Latin America is totally different, totally different. And it also made me reflect on how I taught and how I treated my students, just everything. I know in the beginning of the school year, um, this is a funny story. I hadn't asked like how the day was going to end. I knew how it was going to start. I understood the schedule, the rotation of classes, and my last class ended at 2:30, and I was kind of like, oh my gosh, what do I do now? Where do the kids go? And like, is there the carpool line? Like, where do I'm supposed to watch them? And they said, just open the door and just let them go. And I was freaking out, like, well, how will they know where to go? And how will they know? Like, they had after school activities that started at 3. What were they going to do for the 30 minutes? Like, it was just very lax. It was very lax. And I'm used to like walking a straight line, tucking your belt. Like, we are so just honestly, might be,
Regimented.
yeah, we are, and we're also so very much like work, work, work. Like we're in a cycle of constantly working all the time and trying to excel that we don't know how to just kind of like go with the flow of things. And so I had to really change that mentality. Like, and honestly, that was better for myself. I was just stressing myself out. So as I think about that, you're talking about some of the things as far as expect nothing but that there will be people there. what was an unexpected experience maybe in the classroom for you?
Them referring to me as Miss Adalia. Like I I guess this was showing my age because I was like, you don't call grown folks by their first name, like not in a school setting.
Yeah,
Like if I, because like at a daycare, that's your teacher, Miss Nisi, Miss Bethany, whatever. But
yeah,
like that was how they did things there. They did not refer to teachers by their last names.
yeah.
And so I had to get over myself and was like, okay, that's what we're going to do. And because the school I taught at was so small, like my daughter was a sophomore, there
Mm-hmm.
were 6 or 7 sophomores.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was the entire grade.
That's really small. I did not know that. You're in such a
Yes.
small
And
school.
I had taught at the last school I taught at in Texas. I think our enrollment one year was like 3,700, something like that. I had a first period class of 43 ninth
Mm-hmm.
graders. So when a school is that small, like it's
Mm-hmm.
just the line between like the school and parents and home stuff is it's a lot less distinct. And
Yeah,
so that was something that I had to adjust to.
yeah. How did your daughter adjust? Like going, I know a lot of people are like, I don't want to go when the kids are too young. I don't want to go when the kids are too old. Like, how did she adjust with that experience? Like, did she experience culture shock? Did you experience culture shock?
I don't I don't I don't think we experience culture shock.
Mm-hmm.
But there were things that surprised me. So where is the line between a surprise and shock? I don't know. She had a ball. She had a blast.
Yeah.
Because with a school that small, you can't hide out in the back of the room and not turn your homework in when there are only 7 people in your entire grade
Yeah.
and y'all all have the same classes together. So the one-on-one, the relationship she had with her teachers, there's no way we could have replicated that in Texas. Um, and then as far as making friends or whatever, she was like a duck to water. Within the first week, she was like, okay, so we're hosting a dinner party at our house on this day. I'm going to need you to do X, Y, and Z. And,
Yeah.
so like her social calendar was full. I
Yeah.
mean,
I would say I've noticed with my kids that they honestly adapted way faster than I did. Like just making friends, the language, just by month 3, my son was like, "Do we have to go back to the United States? Can we stay in Honduras forever?" So I definitely, and then the great thing with having kids, I met a lot of friends through my kids' friends. So like my kids' friends' parents, which is so wonderful to have my kids along, and they're kind of like helping me in essence. Um, Now another wondering that I have is, would you like, let's say just anyone, is there a specific time that you recommend to go? Like you have an older child, you're not married currently. I'm married, I have younger kids. Is there a transition time in life where you're like, this is the best time to start living abroad?
I think if you can do it younger, that's
Mhm.
all the better, especially if one of your goals is language acquisition. I think my daughter, because she was in high school, her parents were newly divorced. I
Mhm.
sold it to her because I told her when I had made my decision to move abroad, because initially I was going to put that on hold until she graduated
Yeah.
and things started to align. And I was kind of like, I don't know if I can delay the life I want that much longer. And
Yeah.
so I told her, this is what I want to do. And I want you to come with me. If there is a particular country that you would like to spend time in, like I can focus my job search
Yeah.
on that. So that was my I forget what the term is I'm looking for, but that was kind of like my olive branch, because I know with older kids, parents feel guilty about like disrupting a lot of the traditional high school stuff.
Yeah.
But I would
Prom,
say
homecoming, all
a
that.
lot of that is us projecting oh, we want to give this experience to our kid, which our kid may be totally into, but there are other ways to
Mhm.
experience that time in your life. And she was like, no, I'm not interested, whatever. So I had already accepted the job in Honduras thinking she was not coming with me. And then she changed her mind.
Mm.
And so I was like, well, this is where I'm going. And I said, well, look, we can kind of you can do it for a year. I said, think of it like as a study abroad. And if you don't love it, you can come back to Texas. If you do, you can stay and go with me wherever. Um, so I think younger is better because I think had she had more time of living that lifestyle,
Mhm.
just because just the 1 year she had opened up new horizons, new career pathways, new interests to her that I don't think would have occurred to her before. And I just thought, wow, if we had done this a little earlier,
Yeah.
like what would have been possible then?
Yeah.
Um, I think you can do it at any age. I think if you want to do it and the kid is like 11th, 12th grade, that's going to be really, really
That,
kid dependent
yeah.
because not every kid is going to be like, no, I don't want to spend my senior year with all the people I know doing all the traditional things. But I think if you can do it with young kids, like I get a lot of people concerned about taking young kids, and I'm like,
I was
they
so
got kids
concerned.
everywhere.
I was so concerned. Now that I'm here, I'm like, I don't even know what I was worried about. I just think you're in that stage of life when you have your first child or you have young kids where you're just in a state of anxiety all the time. Like, I want to make sure I'm this kind of mom. There's so much pressure. But I know I just kept thinking they had to be older. And now that I'm here, I'm exactly like you. I see the difference between my 3 year old and my 8 year old. And it's just night and day. Like my 3 year old, he's been here for 6 months. And I would say he speaks more Spanish than I do. And I have a whole Spanish literature degree. Like I lived in Argentina. Like he has conversations with me in Spanish. And sometimes I just kind of like pretend because I want him to see me as the Spanish speaking mom and to keep using it. Or just even with friends, like I'm just like, man, I wish we would have came when they were younger. That doesn't make any sense. I wish we would have came and had our kids here and they'd have dual citizenship. Like there's so many I wishes, but I definitely say when it's time, you'll know and go. Like just go. Now,
Well, if y'all stay abroad, you can get them permanent residency, depending where y'all end up and that sort of thing, because that's what a friend of mine did. Her
oh,
kids, because they were corporate expats, now have permanent residency in 2 countries.
that's amazing. I did not know that. It's amazing. Picky girl travels here, you guys. But you know what? How did you make that transition? At what point did you say, you know what? I've now taught in an amazing country and in a school where I should have noticed all the red flags. At what point did you say, you know what, now I want to take step away from education and fully just dive into Picky Girl Travels the World? At what point?
I don't know that that was the decision I made, but I ended my career teaching at a Canadian offshore school in China.
Okay.
And um well, okay, let me back up. The school that I was at in Honduras was great, but it was teeny tiny.
Okay.
And so any fluctuations in enrollment impacts the overall budget. And so they had to revisit, restructure some things. And the way the new structure was going to be, I was going to do the job they hired me. Plus, I was going to be the entire high school social studies department for the same pay. And I
Oh,
said, no,
yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
And that is how I ended up. I basically took a year off where I was like, this could be more than a year or not.
Hmm.
And then I went to Kuwait after that. But I think having that time off and the freedom of being like, oh, there's a flight deal, I'll book that and I'll go wherever. When I went back to work and having to plan my travel around a school schedule again,
Yeah.
I felt the kind of way about that. I did not like that. And so I can remember very distinctly saying, this job is getting in the way of my traveling. And
Mm-hmm.
so I knew I was going to leave then.
Wow.
What Picky Girl Travels or Picky Girl Travels the World was going to be, I did not know.
Okay.
But I knew I wanted it. There's a lot of changes that have gone on in my life in the last 8 years. And a big part of that was I wanted to live a life focused on travel.
Yeah. Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, when I was in Kuwait, because of where that country is located, like I was in a different country every weekend.
Yeah.
Thursday night after work, I was on a plane somewhere.
Yeah. That is the great thing about being in some of these countries. Like if you're in Europe, you can fly here, there. If you're some parts, I would say, of the islands, like that is a great opportunity. Not so much in Honduras. I will probably be here for a very long time just because I love it so much here, and my kids love it so much. I don't see me transitioning anytime soon, but that would definitely be a long-term thing for sure because I love traveling just like you. Um, we're getting to the close of our interview, but I want to end with this question. And I'm sure people ask you this all the time, but what is your most favorite thing about being an expat, about being a traveler, living life in your own terms? What's your favorite thing?
I think, oh wow, that is a hard question to answer and not one I've really thought about. I think about like living this life that I have now. Um, I did not think that this was possible for me. So like I guess the best thing is that I am doing this. Like it would have been very easily to look at how I grew up, look at the bad marriage I was in. I was
Mhm.
over 40 when I moved abroad,
Mhm.
and say like, oh, it's too late.
Mhm.
And so I am the thing that I love the most is that I am still around to be able to live this life that I for, the first time in my life am completely and utterly happy and in love with my life.
Yeah.
Like that's the best part.
I love that. I love that. And I feel it too, when by the time we finally went abroad, I feel like I didn't even realize how unhappy I was with the life I was living. It was like I was living a life on a plane that I never asked to be on, to go on a destination that I never wanted to go to. And I finally, things were happening in our life. We were going through a troublesome time with, our marriage, our finances. And I think that for me was like the catalyst of like, I cannot live like this any longer. But I didn't know it was possible. Like the way that women especially will talk themselves out of things before we even try. Like I hadn't even tried, and I had a million reasons why I couldn't live life that way. I had to be a mom now. I was a wife now. I was this now. So I love how you are truly enjoying and loving life, and that's like the best thing about being an expat. And I 100% agree. Like living abroad and teaching abroad did not just change the way that I see education or teaching, but on a deeper level, like how I just everything, like financially, spiritually, emotionally, my marriage, everything is better.
You you out Once you're outside of the US in particular, there's a lot. The US has really, really good PR, really good,
Girl.
you know, and we have been indoctrinated since the beginning. Like that is the best place to live. The way we do things is the best. And as you are living in other countries and you're examining like other people's relationship between like leisure time and work time and how families are structured and how families behave, you start to see like, wow, there is another way to live. And by living this other way, adopting the ways of your new country, you at least for me, I felt so much better. I was like, why couldn't I have lived this life before? Like,
Yeah.
because that's just not how we do things in the US. So being in other environments, other cultures, and seeing how other people live
Mhm.
has kind of opened this door of like all these things I didn't know were possible.
Yeah. I honestly have a theory that in the States, the thing that we are the best at is thinking we're the best. Like that's
Oh,
what we're the best
absolutely.
at. It's like no one's better than thinking that we're the best. And like once you finally leave and observe and just live somewhere else, I tell people just go, because you are not a tree. You will not grow roots. You can go back to the life that you were living, especially as teachers. There's a shortage right now. They will take you back any school, anywhere. You can leave and you can come back if it doesn't work out. Thank you so much for being here today.
You're
It
welcome.
was an honor,
You're
a
welcome.
privilege. I'm so excited. Like, I hope we will do this again on the channel. It's been wonderful. Is there anything that you want to say to your viewers, my viewers, anyone?
You know, I didn't think to mention this to you because I am a horrible capitalist, but you know, I wrote a book about finding a job teaching abroad.
I did not know that. Oh my, I'm over here like
Because
I am the biggest fan. I did not know that.
I am horrible when it comes to self-promotion. So I would say if there are educators watching this and they're thinking, this sounds great, I'll do that when I retire, or I'll do that in X number of years, I would encourage them not to put it off.
Yeah.
Because I think had I done this earlier in my career, like things would have turned out a lot differently. I think I would not have gotten burned out as at the point and at the level that that did happen to me. So I would say, and as you so expertly pointed out, right now, because I know, like, I landed, like, I was teaching my dream subject at my dream school, like, and so when, as teachers, when we get gigs like that, we're very hesitant to leave because we know you go somewhere else and things aren't going to be as great. But given the environment that exists right now in education, I say take a year or two, teach abroad. You're always going to be able to come back to that job in the States.
Yeah.
I that's more true now, I think, than ever before. So I would say if you're thinking this sounds great, but maybe I'll do it in a couple of years, like, I say if you want to do it now.
Okay. Yeah. Excellent. And we'll definitely, in the description, I'll make sure I put the book. I'm going to read it. You guys go read it. Like, this is like something really new that I did not know about. Thank you so much for your time. I cannot wait to do this again with you. And we love to, you know, just have this conversation with Black women, with educators. It has been wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Okay.
Thanks for
everyone
having
out
me.
there. Thanks for joining us today on Minerves on the Move. Remember, I'm Jocelyn Minerve. Please follow us, hit the subscribe button. Follow Picky Girl Travels the World. This woman is phenomenal, you guys. Subscribe to her YouTube, Instagram. She has everything. We don't have all that. Go and follow her. Thank you guys so much and enjoy your night tonight.